Okay, so in case you're having trouble finding that, okay, it's in the classwork tab, but it's also in the stream. Okay, Toxin project right here, right? And what I'm going to be going through is the PDF, okay? But obviously you can do either a slides presentation or a Google Doc. Okay, it doesn't matter to me which one you choose. Whichever one you choose, please delete the other. Makes it a lot easier when I come back to market. Okay, I know exactly which one I need to look at for you. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the expectations for the assignment here. Okay, so what you're going to be doing here is you're going to be examining the effect of long-term exposure to a toxic chemical. You get to choose the toxic chemical. Okay. What you're going to be looking at there is not just the health effects of the chemical on the people that are exposed to it, but societal effects as well. How does that affect everybody? Okay, so an example I can give you here is something like this. If somebody chooses to smoke 2 packs a day, that's their choice. Okay, they expose themselves obviously to toxic chemicals in the form of nicotine and tar and all the other really awful stuff that's in cigarettes. Okay, that directly affects them. That has an indirect effect on me who doesn't smoke. Okay, it indirectly affects me because of the way things work in Canada, specifically healthcare. That person is far more likely to have to draw on the healthcare system than I am, at least over the long term. Okay? So, who pays for healthcare? Taxpayers, exactly. We do. You will eventually, because there's only 2 certainties in life: death and taxes. Okay? And so you're going to have to do both at some point. Okay? So, the more people draw on the system, the more it costs, and the more we thus pay. We're really seeing that right now during COVID, okay, because we're having to put more and more money into healthcare, as we should, to take care of people. Okay? But somebody who's exposed to a toxic chemical could have that kind of indirect societal effect, okay, on other people as a result of the toxic chemical. Okay? You could be looking at things like if somebody is addicted to, let's say, crystal meth. They obviously could be spending time in a hospital because overdoses are quite common. Okay? Taxpayers pay for that. They probably will end up at some point engaging in criminal activity to support their habit. Okay? Which means they're going to have encounters with the police, spend time in jail. Those 2 things are paid for by taxpayers. That's an indirect societal effect on you and me. Okay? Maybe you're the poor person whose house they break into to steal stuff to pay for their habit. That's another indirect or societal effect of that toxin. Does everyone kind of follow what we're looking for there? You kind of have to think a little bit outside the box for those societal effects. Okay? They could affect people. Insurance rates is another one. Okay? Stuff like that are things to kind of look for in terms of societal effects. It says societal costs here, but I'm not looking for you to find a dollar figure. Okay? Like, a single, crystal meth addict costs society this many dollars per year. I'm not looking for that. You're never going to find that. Okay? What I'm looking for is just for you to kind of think about how that might affect everybody. Okay? Everybody all right with how I explain that? Does that sort of make sense? Okay. All right, so the scope of the paper is to go beyond an examination of health issues to encompass societal effects as well. Okay, and we've talked about all of that stuff. Okay, what you do need to obviously talk about in terms of the chemical itself, okay, is it ionic? Is it molecular? Okay, is it organic? Okay, does it come from a plant? Is it synthesized completely synthetically? Or maybe it's a combination of both. Okay, and then also talk about what does it do to the body? Okay, what does this toxic chemical do to the body? What are its toxic effects? Does it change the way that neurotransmitters work in the brain? Okay, does it change blood flow rates? Okay, things like that. What parts of the body does it directly affect? Okay, things of that nature. Okay, what are some symptoms, okay, that a person might exhibit if they've been exposed to this chemical, right? For example, with heavy metal poisoning, okay, you often see the effects of heavy metal poisoning early on in people's hair and fingernails. Okay, you can often get like a striping pattern on the fingernails. Okay, and hair and fingernails don't tend to grow quite as well. Okay, if there's heavy metals in a person's system. Okay, so things like that. Looking for symptoms, looking for signs of the exposure. What does it do? Okay, what are the long-term effects? Is the person likely to have liver failure, develop cancer, okay, things like that. What are the things that could happen long term? All right, so you're reporting on the chemical nature of your toxin, what type of chemical, ionic, molecular, okay, we've gone over that. How is its chemical structure related to its toxicity? Okay, what I mean by that is what about this chemical is actually doing the damage or that is actually toxic, okay? And we talked about the societal effects, okay, things that to expose, whether the exposure to the toxin is by choice, like alcohol, nicotine, or other drugs, or is in the workplace, or is it in nature? Okay, recently we've had all this talk about the coal mines that they had proposed, okay, in the mountains, and one of the big concerns with those coal mines is selenium, okay, which is a toxin getting into the water supply, okay, and that can get into, well, the drinking supply for lots of communities as the rivers flow away from the mountains, so it's a big concern. That would be something in nature. You're just exposed to that with no ability to kind of change it. Okay. All right, so what are the costs? And again, more than just a dollar figure. Okay, looking at load on hospitals, man hours lost to illness, treatment centers, imaging facilities. Okay, and what I mean by that is, by load on hospitals, is exactly what we've seen with COVID here over the last little while. Okay, hospitals are overloaded. Okay, when we get to a certain point, the number of people in intensive care, okay, is what triggers our different levels of restrictions. Okay, the reason for that is if you fill up all the beds in intensive care with people that have COVID, you don't have beds for people in intensive care who may get in a car accident, okay, or something like that. So that's the big concern, is that if all the beds are full with people with this particular problem, then there's no beds available for someone who comes in suddenly. Okay? And that can be a big concern. Okay? I know that we were really concerned a while back because they were starting to convert some of the ICU beds at the Children's Hospital into COVID beds, okay, for adults. Okay? That's a big concern when you have your own children. If something were to happen to one of my kids and I have to take them to the Children's Hospital and they turn me away because there's no beds. Okay? And that's kind of what we're looking at there, load on hospitals. Okay? Another thing that could be a concern, a societal effect, okay, would be man hours lost to illness. Okay? What that means is, if you're sick, you can't go to work. Okay? Whatever your job is either not getting done, or it costs twice as much to do it that day. Okay? In the case for me, it costs twice as much to teach this class if I'm sick. Okay? Why is that? Because I have sick days, paid sick days. Right? If I get sick, I'm not going to lose my pay for that day. So I still get paid, but who else gets paid? The sub costs twice as much to teach class on the day when I'm sick. Okay? That's a big deal during COVID. If I have to go home and self-isolate, okay, obviously then for 2 weeks, it costs twice as much to teach this class, because there's still somebody here. Okay, everybody kind of follow me on that? So that's man hours, that's what that means. Okay, treatment centers, imaging facilities, stuff like that, that all costs money. It all comes partially, at least, out of the public purse. Okay, that's taxpayer money. Okay, those are societal things to look for. Okay, also, does the government have regulations related to this toxin? Are there exposure limits? Are there age regulations? Okay, is it legal to possess the substance? Okay, lots of the stuff that's in our chemistry lab is not legal for most people to possess. Okay, we have a special permit to have those substances on site and to order supplies of them, okay, for the purpose of education. Right? If you were to try and order those yourself as a normal member of society, you would be told, no, that is a controlled substance, okay, and you don't have permission to own it or have it. All right, so is that sort of making sense, what we're looking for there? Okay, and then the last little bit, okay, put in an opinion there, okay? Based on what you learn about this toxin, what are your feelings on it? Should it be banned? Should there be greater restrictions or regulations put on its use, disposal, etc.? Okay, disposal is a big one. Toxic chemicals can't just be put down the sink or down the toilet. Okay, they can't go through the sewage system because they'll end up in the river. Okay, stuff like that. So we have to have special ways to get rid of those kinds of toxic chemicals. All right, when you're picking your toxin, make sure you're picking something that is chemically toxic. Okay, I've often had people, they'll start their project and they'll come up and go, Mr. Cooder, is it okay if I do this? And they're doing their project on like uranium or plutonium. Okay, those things are radioactive. They're radiologically toxic, they're not chemically toxic. Okay, so the way that they affect you is different. It's not a chemical reaction, it's a radiological or at the atomic level kind of reaction. So if you're thinking of doing that, stay away from that one. It's not the same thing. Similarly, it cannot be a biological toxic. That means like you can't do this on COVID. Okay, you can't do this on COVID-19 on the virus itself. The virus itself is actually not toxic. It's your body's reaction to it. Okay, it's the same with if you get food poisoning. Okay, people are like, oh well, I got poisoned by my food. Well, no, actually you didn't. There were bacteria in your food, and when those bacteria started growing in your body, they produced a toxin that made you sick. Okay, and so it's different. That's a biological type of thing. Now, if you want to actually look at the toxin the bacteria produces, that would be fun. Okay, for example, botulism. Okay, botulism is a bacterial toxin. Okay, if you get it, okay, if you get botulism, the bacteria produce this toxic chemical that paralyzes your muscles. Okay, anyone know what we also use that toxin for? Botox. Botox. Okay, botulism produces a toxic chemical in your body that paralyzes your muscles. In an extreme case, it can cause a person to die of suffocation because their muscles get so paralyzed that they cannot even breathe. Okay? This same toxin is injected into people's skin to take away wrinkles. Okay? If your muscles can't clench, and so you can see because I'm old, right, to get the wrinkles right away when I do that. Okay? If you can't clench those muscles, you can't get the wrinkles. Okay? And so people very often get it in your foreheads and things like that cosmetically, okay? Because that toxin will paralyze those muscles, right? Which is often why you can tell if someone's had like way too much of it, they have no expression, right? They're really, really angry, their voice is angry, but they look like this and they're yelling at you because they can't frown, and so they paralyze the muscles in their forehead, right? Okay. So that's just so you're clear on what kinds of things would be acceptable for the report and what kind of things wouldn't be. Okay. Similarly, if you're choosing to do this project on a drug, okay, because oftentimes people they'll want to do this project, they'll want to talk about marijuana. That's fine, but this is on the toxic part of marijuana, not the plant. Okay. So if you wanted to talk about THC or something like that, that's fine. Do your report on THC. You can say it comes from marijuana, okay, but you can't do your report on marijuana. Marijuana itself is a plant. Okay, we want to focus on the toxic chemical itself. Okay, everybody with me there? All right, so when you're doing a research project, one of the things you have to make sure you do is cite your references. Okay? People lose marks on this part of this project all the time because they don't follow these instructions. So these instructions are really, really important. If you are taking information from a website, which is probably what you're all going to do, you must cite that website in this format. So you're going to have to look for this information. Author's name. That's usually the hardest one. I don't know why people don't want to put their name on their work anymore, okay, but online it's often hard to find the author's name. Look for it, okay? So name of the author, date the article was published, hopefully it's newer than this one, okay, because this is very, very old, okay? The title of the article, so in this case it was Vive le Québec, Vive le Canada, and then the name of the website, the Daily News, okay, or whatever you get yours from, all right? So you might have something like, Doe, John, October 30th, 2020, okay? And then the title of the article could be THC and its effect on the brain, and then maybe you got that from Health Canada. Okay, so the name of the website will be Health Canada, right? Then you put in the URL, okay, so www. whatever it is, okay, and the day you accessed it, okay? So today, that would be, February 24th, 2021, okay? That information all must be there in your references cited section, okay? And it must be in that format. That is the proper format to cite a reference, okay? You should have 5 references minimum. Okay? Now, on that note, I want to quickly talk about plagiarism. Plagiarism is bad, okay? Plagiarism means you copy somebody else's stuff, okay? And a lot of people go, well, Mr. Coderre, as long as I change a couple of words, I'm not copying it. Yes, you are. You're still taking that person's ideas directly, and you're, instead of saying this stuff is very bad, you take out the very, and now it says bad, and now it's yours. Not a chance. Okay, that's not how it works. Okay, you must read their stuff and synthesize your own ideas from it. Okay, it is incredibly easy for me to figure out whether something has been plagiarized. And Google Classroom made my job even easier last year when they brought in a plagiarism checker. Okay? It just used to be if I read it and it didn't sound like a 16-year-old that wrote it, I got flags went up. Okay? Or things like the font changed 5 times during the report. Okay? Stuff like that. Okay? But now Google checks it automatically. Okay? I've had people hand stuff in and I just click check for plagiarism, and it goes 75% of this is copied from this website, 20% from this website, 5% is original material. Okay? And it spits it out just like that. Okay? And then I click on the 75%, it takes me to the website and shows me all the highlighted text you copied. That's a really awkward conversation for you. For me, it's not. I just tell you you're going to have to take a 0. But it'd be bad. Okay? The big thing here, guys, is not only that plagiarism is illegal, but also that you're not learning anything by doing that. And the point of this activity is for you to learn something. Okay? You're researching on something you get to choose. Okay? Learn about it, become informed, stuff like that. Okay? If you're just copying that stuff, you're missing the point. Okay? All right. Planning. 5 marks out of 25 on this project are for your planning. Your planning is really easy. I want to see 2 things. I want to see a timeline. Okay, so all you have to do on the timeline is tell me when you worked on it, what you did. So you can say February 24th, started research, wrote introductory paragraph. February 25th, continued research, wrote 2nd and 3rd paragraphs. Then every time you work on it, just record it. Okay, so that I see a timeline of when you worked on it. If you leave everything until the night before, your timeline will be very short, but you must still include it. Okay? You're not going to lose marks if you say, yeah, I left it till the night before, I crammed everything down, stayed up till 3 in the morning, shot 4 Red Bull, and I got done. Okay, that's fine. I mean, that's when you worked on it. Just show me that's when you worked on it. Okay? You don't have to lie and make it up. Okay? I just want to see a timeline of when you worked on it. And the second thing I want to see, you have a choice here. Okay? I either want to see an outline of your project, so paragraph 1, introduction, talk about this, paragraph 2, talk about this, paragraph 3, or a thought web. You can choose whichever one works better for the way you think. Okay, some people are really type A and they want to have this thing, this thing, this thing, and some people want to have all the ideas out there so that they can kind of connect them. Either way is fine with me, but I need to see either an outline or a thought web as the second part of your planning. That's 5 marks. They're 5 really easy marks. Okay? A thought web and a timeline, or an outline and a timeline. 5 easy marks. Just remember to do it. People forget it all the time, and there's 5 easy marks out of 25. Okay? All right, questions on the planning? Okay. So the format for this, guys, okay, is okay, so the format for this, you can either do, well, it says PowerPoint here, but it's Google Sheets, or Google Slides, okay, or Google Docs. I wouldn't bother trying to do a movie or any other type of format. I would just stick to those 2, okay. Your project should include some visual aids, okay, so I have some pictures in there. I get bored if I don't get to see some pictures while I'm reading all of these, so put some pictures in there, okay. Be creative, okay, come up with some stuff. Okay, the scope of the project, you're going to get 2 class periods today and tomorrow to work on it, and your project should be at the bare minimum between 800 and 1,000 words. Okay, if your project is 802 words, don't expect to get 100%. Okay, I'm telling you that 800 is the bare minimum to get this job done, not to do it well. Right? 1,000 words, guys, is roughly a page to a page and a quarter in the Google Docs default settings, 1-inch margins, 11-point fonts, okay, that kind of stuff. You're not going to do a great job of it in 800 to 1,000 words. Okay, the best ones I see are usually around 1,500 to 1,800 words. right? I have had people hand in ones that were 8,000 words. I must admit that I didn't read all of them. Okay? I'm not looking for a doctorate level thesis paper to be submitted here. Okay? It's just an activity to go over some stuff and learn a few things. Okay? So if you are looking at this thing and you're at 3,000 words and you're feeling like you're not done, start doing some editing. Okay? There's probably a lot of stuff in there you don't need, and you've gone way over the expectations for that. Okay? All right. So you're going to be evaluated in 5 categories. 5 marks for planning, we already talked about that. Timeline and either a thought web or an outline. Okay? Analysis and interpretation, that has to do with the stuff you write. Okay? What kind of analysis did you do? Okay? Were you getting information that was valid and current and stuff like that? Okay? And what did you do with it? Okay? Communication, how well did you communicate your ideas? So a big part of communication is making sure that your paper flows. Okay? If your whole thing is slide after slide after slide of bulleted list after bulleted list after bulleted list, that doesn't flow. Okay? You got to tie your ideas together. Okay? That's communication, right? Also, making it so that I can read and understand it is part of communication. If I'm stumbling over your grammar and things like that, then that's going to make it difficult for me to understand the ideas you're trying to communicate to me, right? So that's kind of communication there. Right? Research and investigation, that's your references cited. Okay? That's going to go at the end of the project, and that's what we talked about circled in red up here. Okay? Every time you take something from a website, find this information, record it somewhere so that you can put it in the references cited at the end of your report. And then overall, okay? What impression does your project make? Are there spelling mistakes? Does the presentation show this project was something you're proud to say you worked on? Okay, stuff like that. So in the overall part is where things like spelling, okay, kind of come out. Did you pick some good visual aids? Is it, neat? No, I mean, you're handing it in digitally, so I mean, obviously it's going to be tight, but does it look like it was organized and stuff like that? Okay, so that's kind of where overall is going to come into play. All right. Okay. Now, when you're doing your research, please make sure you're taking information from credible websites. Okay, Crackpot Joe's website about crack is probably not a credible website about the effects of crack, okay, on people. So just make sure that you're looking for credible websites. Going onto somebody's blog is not always a great idea. Anybody can have a blog, okay, and lots of times people spout off a bunch of crap that's not true. Okay. Similarly, be cautious of Wikipedia. Okay, Wikipedia is fine for like kind of basic facts. So if you're looking up a toxin, you could get its formula off of Wikipedia, its atomic weights and stuff like that. That stuff would be reliable enough for, but you really have to watch. Remember that Wikipedia is made by contributors, not by anyone necessarily who's overly credible. Okay, because I have seen some crazy stuff on Wikipedia that is later removed. Okay, but their fact checkers are pretty far behind. Okay, I'll give you an example. I once had a kid who came up to me with their computer and said, "Look, Mr. Gooder, it says here that Adolf Hitler died of a crystal meth overdose." No, he didn't. Okay, that's not how Adolf Hitler died. The Germans did in fact invent crystal methamphetamine as part of the Blitzkrieg, but that's not what Hitler died of. Okay, and that was a fact that was on Wikipedia for a short period of time before the fact checkers got it. So, look at Wikipedia, but take everything on there with a grain of salt. It's not always right. Okay. All right, questions from you guys?
Do we have to do either a PowerPoint or a Google Docs?
Yes. Pick one. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions there, guys?
Can we directly quote somebody?
You can directly quote somebody, yes, as long as that's not your whole report.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? All right. If you are like doing an interview, like if you have somebody who is a nurse or doctor or works in a treatment center or something, that's a good source of information. You'll have to cite it a little differently. You'll just say personal interview with so and so and tell me their position.
right. And if we take it off of the website and quote it, will that be used as plagiarism?
No, again, it's about the amount, right? Like a lot of people will do that, but they'll get crazy with it and ends up like 2/3 of their report is all quoted stuff, and that's not really generation of new ideas. If you're using a quote, use it to support something, but keep it short. Okay, any other questions? All right, you've got the rest of class today and class tomorrow to work on this. Okay, so make good use of this time. You're stuck here, so you might as well get stuff done, then you don't have to do it at home. Okay, or you have to do less of it at home. Right? If you got questions while you're working, let me know, and I'm happy to help.
So for the planning part, the web or the paragraph, you just
Okay, so for planning, a timeline, so just tell me February 24th, started research, just record anytime, or plan when you're gonna work on it. Okay, and then you do either a thought web or an outline. Okay, so if you're doing a thought web, then you put alcohol in the middle, and you take your ideas coming off of that, so like effects on the brain, psychological effects on other people, insurance rates, car accidents, whatever.
also
Right?
you have to do it like as you go. Doesn't have to be first.
Um,
Come up with like more ideas as you
Yeah,
go.
if you come up with more ideas as you go, obviously add them to it, but it's a good place to start, right? Okay, have at it there, guys.
Mr. Peter,
Yep.
is there like a specific font size or anything that you would like?
Nope. Nope. Well, don't do the ones that are like calligraphy. Those are hard to read.